speaking of the Second Amendment, last week Darren McBreen talked about a bill that is being presented in a town called Gilberton, Pennsylvania. Basically, the police chief there, his name is Police Chief Mark Kessler, is proposing an ordinance called the Second Amendment Preservation Ordinance that basically states that he wants to make sure that whatever the federal government and state government says in his town of Gilberton, it's a very small town, about 800 plus people, we will honor the Second Amendment and we will have loose gun laws despite what the federal and state government says. God bless them. And we're now going to speak to the Chief of Police of Gilberton, Pennsylvania. Again, Chief of Police Mark Kessler. Chief Kessler, thank you so much for joining us here on InfoWars Nightly News.
Thank you, Dave.
Now, Chief, tell us a little bit about your proposal. It's called the Second Amendment Preservation Ordinance.
Well, Dave, basically the ordinance slash resolution is to recognize the Second Amendment in the Constitution of the United States and the Section 21 of the Pennsylvania Constitution, which states the right to keep and bear arms shall not be questioned. Basically, what I'm trying to do is have our council in the borough of Gilberton recognize the Second Amendment, and that they're going to stand behind me and stand behind the citizens of the United States and the Second Amendment, and that they're not going to infringe on the Second Amendment regarding any state, local, or federal laws, rules, or regulations that may or may not come down from the elites in Washington, I guess you could call them.
Now, what prompted you to do this?
Everything that's going on right now in Washington with all of the bureaucrats that are making such a mess and causing such a hornet's stir over one man's act of evil up in Connecticut to those poor innocent children. And they're labeling everybody, law-abiding gun owners, as criminals now. And I felt I needed to do something to make a stand and let it be known that this is not going to go over very well with me. And I hope I can speak with more. I hope I can speak for the majority of law enforcement officials out there. They should stand behind the Constitution, and they should stand behind the Second Amendment, and the right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. And I don't understand what part of that these politicians in Washington don't get.
Now, Chief, what would you say to critics who say, oh, come on, more guns in the hands of civilians is going to lead to more gun violence?
I'd have to say that's a false accusation. That's definitely a false accusation, and that would not sit well with me whatsoever. It's not the law-abiding citizen that are going out and committing these heinous crimes. It's the mentally ill. It's the gangbanger. It's the career criminals that are doing all these horrendous crimes with firearms. It's not the average person. It's not the law enforcement officials, the law-abiding citizens that are going out and doing all this crazy stuff. And I would not be in support of that at all.
Now, you actually just said some of this has to do with drugs. So a lot of the violence, you would agree, has to do with the drug war. Exactly.
The drugs are a huge part of the violence right now. Even in my little area, there's a thing called bath salts that they're actually killing each other over this stuff. It's a synthetic amphetamine that's being sold at convenience stores. Fortunately, the state was smart enough to, the bureaucrats on the state level were smart enough to introduce legislation to ban synthetic drugs finally in Pennsylvania, but it's not stopping. There's other states where it's legal and they're bringing it in, and it's just all-out war with the heroin, the synthetic drugs, and everything else. It's just making a real mess around the entire nation. And it's not the guns. If they should focus anything, they should focus on the guys that are standing on the street corner selling the heroin and the synthetic drugs to kids.
Now, Chief, if this Second Amendment Preservation Ordinance passes, I mean, can the federal government or state law trump your town's ordinance?
Under the 10th Amendment, which gives us the power to nullify any state, federal, or local laws, regulations, rules and regulations, as far as that we're not going to enforce them because we feel that they're unconstitutional, that they are unconstitutional. Any law that comes down against the Second Amendment of the Constitution is unconstitutional. As far as we're concerned in this borough, we will not enforce any laws that are unconstitutional or that go against the Second Amendment of the Constitution itself, or the Constitution of Pennsylvania.
But being pragmatic, because you know these government officials really like to flex their muscle and impose their will on states and towns. I mean, do you still think that they can, even though this is a nice ordinance, can they still force it on you guys? You know, force federal law on you? I mean, I know you're not a lawmaker. I don't want to put you on the spot, but
that I'm not sure about. But on our stance is that we're not going to recognize it. You know, we're not going to recognize any federal, state, or local infringement on the right to keep and bear firearms, accessories, or ammunition, nullifying all federal, state, or local acts in violation of the Second Amendment to the Constitution of the United States, along with Section 21, the right to keep and bear arms of the Pennsylvania Constitution, period. And that's that. I mean, I will not have my department go around and enforce any federal regulations, either at the state or local level, even regarding the Second Amendment or the Section 21 of the Pennsylvania Constitution.
Now, Chief, we only have 2 minutes left. Aside from having this bill passed, what do you hope occurs as a result of your ordinance?
Well, Dave, I've been receiving phone calls from thousands and thousands of people all across the United States. And in particularly, today was a very, very, very busy day for me. I got a lot of phone calls from Illinois, actually, and my heart goes out to those people out there. They're in for the fight of their lives, what they're going through right now with the proposed confiscation of firearms out in Illinois, wanting copies of the our ordinance resolution to be sent to their local law enforcement officials, to their sheriffs. They had me contacting their sheriffs out there, the local law enforcement officials out there, asking where they stand. Where do they stand on the Second Amendment? Where do they stand with this? It's just amazing the support I've been getting in. I had a woman from Illinois call me. She's a school teacher. She wanted a copy so she can take it to her local officials and her local chief of police and try and get this passed in her jurisdiction. And she lives in Illinois, and my heart goes out for them. It really does. I had another woman call me from Ohio in tears, you know, supporting my efforts, and I told her, I said, this isn't about me. I'm just merely a messenger. That's all I am, is merely a messenger. This is about our liberty and our freedoms and our constitutional rights, because they are being challenged at a alarming rate, and there hasn't been I feel that this is a time in history where we need to stand up against the tyranny in government, and it is tyrannical right now in Washington. What they're trying to ram through unconstitutional laws down the throats of the American people, and we can't be idle. We can't be like sheep and just let them herd us together and disarm us. And so we have no way to fight back. And God forbid, the last thing you want is any kind of violence. You know, hopefully this starts a match, and the fire grows across the nation, and say enough is enough. We're going to practice the nullification.
And Chief, in the 20 seconds that we have left, where does this bill stand? You have to put it in front of the council. When do you think this bill will be passed, if at all?
January 24th is our regular scheduled meeting here at the Borough Hall, and hopefully it will pass. I'm going to propose it in front of the board, the council, the town council, and ask them to put it up for a vote. I'll have to make a motion and so on and so forth, and hopefully I'll have some supporters and whoever's welcome to come to the meeting and support the Second Amendment and the Constitution.
And for those that don't know, the town has it's a small town, only has about 800 plus residents. But what you're doing, Chief, is extremely patriotic. We wish you the best of luck, and we'll be following up to see what occurs regarding this ordinance.
Thank you very much, Dave.
Thank you, Chief. Have a wonderful evening. Bye-bye.
You too.
Visit Infowars.com and PrisonPlanet.com. When you're on the site, you can also tune in 24 hours a day to my daily radio broadcast. There's also a free iPhone app to listen to the syndicated radio show when and where you want.